Hey guys, and welcome to my favourite part of the day. It is hammer time. Now, before we get to smashing the shit out of some things, we have a few bits and bobs to cover first. Alrighty, number one, we want to make sure that we are starting out with a annealed metal when adding a hammer texture. Number two on that list, we want to make sure the metal is clean and scratch-free. You know, if not, you're just going to end up with a scratched hammer textured surface. Personally, I'll sand my metal to a minimum of 600 grit before adding a hammer texture. Thirdly, we always want to be applying hammer texture with a solid steel surface underneath whatever we're hammering on. So if that is a flat surface, then we're hammering on a bench block. If it's a ring band, we're doing it on a ring mandrel. But hammer texture is not going to work unless we have a solid surface underneath where those hammer blows are landing. Next up on our little list, if you do want a gorgeous smooth hammer texture, or any texture using steel tools in general, then we need to make sure that we're keeping our hammers bright, polished, and also scratch-free. Any scratches on our hammer are going to transfer directly to our metal. And finally, that smooth surface doesn't only apply to hammers, but our bench block too. If you've got a bench block with massive dings in it, then those marks are going to transfer to the back of your pieces too. So if your bench block does look a little like this, take a little time and give it a bit of love, okay? All we got to do is use sandpaper in exactly the same way as if you are sanding any flat surface and put in a little bit of elbow grease, all the way up to about 600 grit or so. Probably the first thing you think of when you think of a hammer texture is the traditional texture from a ball peen hammer, which is this one right here. And as you might expect, you can get these in different sizes, but also different curvatures. And whether you're using what you traditionally think of as a ball peen hammer, a slightly domed planishing hammer, which is this one right here, or a more pointy embossing hammer, they are all pretty much the same. They're leaving rounded indentations in our work, all right? It's just that some are domed a little bit shallower and some a little bit perkier. Applying texture with any of these, though, is easy peasy on a flat sheet or a ring band. You take the hammer and you bash the metal with it. However, understanding that creative license is everything, of course, if you are going for a traditional hammer texture, then there are a few rules. And there is such a thing as a good hammer texture and a bad hammer texture. And this, randomly whacking at our metal with no thought as to the direction, weight, or concentration of the blows, well, this is a bad hammer texture. And when you look at this, you can see we've got gaps between our blows and, well, it just looks a little bit shite. Even when it comes to something as simple as a hammer texture, we're always working intentionally and mindfully. Anyway, what is a good hammer texture then? Again, bearing in mind we're talking traditional and ignoring creative license here. The aim of the game with a good hammer texture is to ensure that the entire surface is covered with hammer blows that are applied evenly over the entire surface of the metal and with even pressure throughout. There should be no areas that have not been smacked with your hammer, righty? And each blow should be overlapping the last. But I can hear a question here. How should I be holding the hammer for this? And to be fair, this is entirely up to you, but let me share how it works for me. If you hold the hammer at the end of the handle, basically you can get heavier blows, it's less effort, but your accuracy is affected by this. If you want a bit more control though, what you can do is hold the hammer close to the head. And it's a little harder to work this way, it takes a little bit more effort, but we can get those blows a little closer to where we actually want them. Another thing that I find helps here is if I'm supporting my arm. So I'm either hammering with my elbow really close into my body, or I'll rest my elbow on my bench, or in some cases, like I'm doing now, I'm resting my forearm on another bench block. And that just helps support my arm so I can focus on making sure those blows are accurate. Seriously, this is really easy, but just like with everything else, it is not a job we want to do in a lobotomized state. Mindfulness is always key. Now, just because I like the look of what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do is hold the hammer a little close to the head so I have more control. And then I'm going to hammer the edge into a little chamfer there. And this is a technique that works really well for creating organic forms. With a little effort, we can get this edge really, really thin, especially if we were to anneal it now before doing this. But the point of this, if we take a look here, you can see that the end is wider now, right? It's flared out a little bit. And that is basic forging in process right there. We've hammered the metal to make it thinner, right? But the metal has to go somewhere. So the metal has expanded outwards and sideways in the case of our ball peen hammer. And that has given us that little flared effect. Now this has happened all over our entire sheet, but because we applied our hammer blows evenly to the entire thing, it's expanded evenly too, and so it's not really noticeable. But when you compare it to a sheet the original size, you can actually see it is considerably larger now. Anyway, why am I so obsessed with this, you might ask? Because hammering metal stretches it. And therefore, if you're adding a hammer texture to a ring band, you need to consider this when you're thinking about the size. So Luce, how much does a ring band actually stretch when you're hammering it then?